Hi guys, and welcome to the companion video to my Partigyle Brewday video in the same channel. Purpose behind this video was simply for those of you that want a bit more detail, to go in and show you how I calculated recipes and numbers using brewing software and online calculators. If that's not for you, then search No Maths Partigyle Beer and Brewing, and you'll find links to No Maths Partigyle Brewdays. There are many different ways to do Partigyle. This is the way I did it. Different isn't wrong, but hopefully this will help somebody figure out how to prepare their recipes and to work out their grain volumes. And finally, a bit of advice: just put aside a whole day, because something will go wrong and you'll need to figure it out, and you've got the added pressure of two brews one after the other. Okay, that piece of advice out of the way, let's go to Beersmith. Okay, so Beersmith is my brewing software tool of choice. There are others out there, Brewfather, etc, etc. To me, nothing beats Beersmith. It is a phenomenal piece of kit. So I'm just going to show you now how I came up with my recipes. So you've got to think about beers that are related, yeah? So I can't do an Imperial Stout as my main brew and a Pils as my second brew. That won't work. But I could do something like a Golden Strong as my first runnings, and then use the second runnings as a Patis beer. I could do an Imperial Stout as my first runnings, and then add some lactose to the second runnings to make a milk stout. For me personally, I went with an old ale as my first runnings, and then I went with a best beer for my second. So the first recipe you want to think about is your old ale, or your first runnings. So I'm going to create that now. This is my first runnings recipe, and this is my old ale. Okay, I'm just going to set my equipment up. Bear with me. Okay, now I want two 21 litre batches. So I'm going to set my old ale up on a 21 litre batch. I'm also just going to get, in case I wanted to enter it in a competition, an idea of the style guidelines for an old ale. I like going pretty much at the stronger end, certainly for this sort of beer. So I am going to create my old ale recipe now, based strongly on Jamil's Brewing Classic Styles Old Ale. I am going to start off with some Maris Otter, and I'm going to put about 9.5 kilo of that in to my recipe. I'm going to add some Carafa 3. Because I'm doing the longer the longer mash, and I'm going to be potentially extracting further down than I would normally, I don't want to get any harshness or acidity out of the out of a husked grain, I should say. So I'm going to use Carafa 3. I'm probably going to put about 200 grams of that in. The fact that I'm giving you this in grams instead of pounds doesn't matter for this example, it just shows the process. I'm also just going to add a bit of crystal. This is a Crystal 80 equivalent that I've got in stock, so I'm perhaps going to use 400 grams of that. So you can see here I've now got an estimated original gravity of 1089, just very slightly above EJCP guidelines for an old ale. So I know now I've got my grain mill for my old ale. Okay, what I'm going to do is just save that. If that's my old ale and it's coming in at 1089, I need to think about what my base recipe is going to be. Easy enough to do a search for Partigyle Maths online and pull up the formulas etc you need and put those into a spreadsheet of your own. But I found this neat little calculator online. I will pop the link into the description of the video, and basically the idea is that you can enter just one of your original gravities and it will solve the rest for you. So I know that my first runnings, my first half batch of the old ale, I want a 1089 first runnings original gravity. I can just click solve others, and what this tells me is that if I have a first runnings of 1089 original gravity, the original gravity for my second batch will be 1044 or 1045, which is pretty much spot on for a best bitter. I can also see that the original gravity of my base recipe needs to be 1066, 1067. So now I've got 3 numbers that I need to create all of my recipes. So I can go back into Beersmith, and I'm going to take my old ale grain bill, and I'm going to call this one my base mash. Okay, so now I know I need 42 litres of this because I need 2 times 21. All right, I'm going to go to adjust gravity, and the Partigyle calculator told me I needed 1067. So I'm going to get Beersmith to adjust this to 1067 for me. And we can see straight away then it's bumped up the quantities of grain that I need. So now I need 14 kilos of Marisota. I need 600 grams of crystal, and I need 300 grams of Carafa 3. So that's fantastic. I'm just going to save that down. So this is what I'll actually mash with. I'm also going to take that base mash, just Control C, Control V, and or right click and copy and paste. I'm going to change the name of this to Best Bitter. And I know my Best Bitter was a 1045 recipe. So I am going to change the litre size to 21 litres, because I only want 21 litres of it. And the gravity now, obviously with 13 kilos of grain, is way too high. So again, I'm just going to adjust the gravity, and I'm going to adjust that down to 1045. Okay, so now I have my base beer for my Best Bitter. Okay. Wonderful. So what I can do here, whilst these grain amounts aren't important, because I'm getting everything from the base mash, what I can start to do now is add my hops. So let's say I'm going to do this with a nice UK hop, Brewer's Gold, 30 grams. Okay. Right, cool. So you can see I can build up my best beer. So what that's really given me now is my mash grains in my base mash. That's what I will be mashing, and I've got my 2 beer recipes here that I can work on. The other thing I can do in Beersmith is click on water, add the water, and it will have also added the level of water that I need. So I hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions, post them below and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you guys.